But I also thought, am I going to live by my values or not? I'm teaching this stuff. Do I want integrity? I was like, all right, let's go for a year without flying.
This is the Ideas Lab podcast, where you can learn from great creative and entrepreneurial minds how to turn your ideas into original businesses, books, and brands. Because in a crowded world, it pays to stand out. This is your host, John Williams, best-selling author and founder of the Ideas Lab London. I'm in Greenwich Village in New York City today, and I'm here to meet Josh Spodek. Josh is a fascinating character. He was formerly an astrophysicist and then became an entrepreneur. And now he's a lecturer in entrepreneurship and leadership at New York University. Josh has achieved a lot of other things. He's a best-selling author. He has a second book coming out this month called Initiative. He's a TedX speaker, a daily blogger, and he has an award-winning podcast called Leadership and the Environment. Now, aside from all these things, I'm fascinated by these daily rituals he has. In fact, he lists them in his email signature, where he does things like he blogs every single day, whatever happens. He gets up within 1 minute of waking up every single day and makes his bed, and he does dozens of burpees, which is a particularly brutal form of push-up every single day, no matter what state he is in. And it's these kind of habits that have built him to the point where he can achieve remarkable things. So it seems to be a link between them. I want to find out, as somebody who doesn't have great self-discipline myself, I want to find out how he's done that and why they matter, and how this adds up into writing successful books and creating successful businesses. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks very much for making the time to speak to me, Josh. This is I've been wanting to talk to you for quite a while, ever since I read your bio, which is absolutely remarkable. And you were an astrophysicist. You've started companies. You teach at where is it? One of
NYU. NYU, yeah, which is like a block away. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have these incredible daily routines. So many things I want to ask you about. I think you're kind of one of those scanner types that I might explain a little bit later. Everything you've achieved, does this not come down to self-discipline, or is it something else? Like, I don't really have very much self-discipline, and I'm just wondering what's the difference between the way you operate and the way most people operate. It allows you to do all these incredible things.
When I was a kid, I didn't go to the gym. I would see people going to the gym and they were really muscular. And I would ask myself, or I'd say, I wish I was muscular so I could go to the gym too. Muscles don't cause going to the gym. Gym causes going to the muscles. It causes building muscles.
Yeah.
I grew up watching a lot of TV, eating a lot of junk food. I didn't have discipline. I don't have exercise. I don't do these daily things because I have discipline.
Right.
I have discipline because I do these daily things. Like you,
Okay.
to me, it took me a long time to realize that.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't skip days is because if I did, it would all fall apart.
Right.
It's not I'm super disciplined. And it to me, and it took me years to get this, it's like going to Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime, I guess, probably even now, and saying, do you go to the gym because you were born so muscular? I'm not muscular, so I wonder what I would do because I can't go to the gym.
Right.
But if you want to have discipline or any skill, you have to practice it. It's not a trait. Like, I have blue eyes. I don't know what you can do. I don't know what color your eyes are, but I don't know if you can change eye color.
Yeah.
But discipline is you if you practice it, you get it. If you don't practice it, you lose it. And one of the great things about it is that it just gives everywhere in life.
Right.
I'm not as disciplined as people think.
So you got this remarkable list of things that you do every day, and it includes things like getting up and making your bed within 1 minute of waking up or something like that.
Yeah.
So you kind of get up and immediately make your bed, but you don't ever hit snooze, I guess.
Right. I didn't intend for that to happen. It was I was teaching a class, and I was one of my leadership classes, and not as a formal assignment for the class, but I said to everyone, try SIDCHA, self-imposed daily. You know what it means. Maybe I'll have a link on it. SIDCHA stands for. Okay, there's habits.
Yeah.
Well, reading the paper every day is a habit. Smoking cigarettes is a habit. They don't make your life better. They're not appreciable. Like, I brush my teeth every day, but that's not that big of a deal. Like, when you think of the greats, like Hemingway would write a certain way, and different people have their habits, and I think it helps achieve greatness. Well, reading the paper every day, I don't think that's not a habit that will achieve greatness. So I wondered what was the difference between just brushing your teeth versus something significant, and I came up with. There's no scientific proof on this. I've not done any experiments or measured anything, but it feels to me about right, which is self-imposed. So if like people go to work, if you're going to lose your apartment because you don't go to work, it's not really self-imposed. You have to choose, like a cold shower. Yeah. You have to choose to do that. Shower.
So that's one of the things you do every day, a cold shower. You've done
No, not every day.
Oh, okay, right.
I did it every day for a month. Realized I wanted to keep doing this. So self-imposed, daily. Now, for some things I do it not daily, but like you have to have a fixed time. Like you have to not be able to say no. Part of that makes it much easier actually. If you have a choice, am I going to do it or not? Yeah. That's death. That's say goodbye to that habit. You have to fix but the other big thing about that is that if it's fixed, then you can't say no, and every now and then you have a really horrible day. Right. And that everything else is training for those days. So if there's a day when like dog threw up and the car broke down and you got fired and your girlfriend's leaving you and stuff like that, how many can you do that day? Yeah, that's the number to do. And if you do more than that, then you're liable to lose it, because on that day you can't. But the point is, on that day, that's when you find out who you are. That's when you peel away everything else and say, am I going to do this or not? And okay, so self-imposed daily, challenging. Yes. So brushing your teeth doesn't really count. Okay. Healthy. So smoking, that rules that out. Yeah. And active, so activity. So I include meditation, which is mentally very active, although physically you may be very still, but doing something, not just like reading a book. Some people might call reading a book active. I don't, but if someone wants to, I'm not saying follow my rules, but Sid Child works for me. If you say to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym for 2 hours, it's like, that's a big hurdle. But if you just say, I'm just going to go to the gym at all, most people will often spend 2 hours there. Or a more common one is, like, you want to go running, and so you put your running shoes on, and eventually there's a pretty high chance you'll go instead of taking them back off again. So it's a kind of trick. Right? So if you set a context where something feels natural, you will do that thing.
So in Leadership Step by Step, which is your previous book, it sounds like quite a bit of it is kind of about self-leadership, which I think is a very interesting topic. That's why I kept thinking of when I was reading about all your daily rituals, all the daily things that you do. It seemed like, well, in fact, everything that you're doing is kind of, if I can do this myself, then that's, I suppose you only want to follow somebody who's got their act together. And so you kind of need to exhibit self-leadership if you want to be a leader, don't you? It's not about telling other people what to do.
Well, telling people what to do is, I advise against that, depending on your goals. If you want people to get annoyed at you, then that's a great, that works very well. Self-leadership is necessary, but not sufficient. Yeah. So, the book has 4 units. Understand yourself, lead yourself. So that part's self-leadership. Okay. Understand others, lead others. That's applying what you learned in the first 2 units to others. So if you only want to lead yourself, yes, self-leadership. But if you want to influence others, so that they want you, so that they thank you for leading them, so that they come back and want you to lead them again, self-leadership is not enough for that.
What are the other things that you've taken on as a habit?
I have a 5-day exercise cycle. So on day 1, it's lift weights. Day 2, it's a Turkish get-up. Day 3 is rest. Day 4 is it's cardio, which for the winter has been the rowing machine, but when the weather's nice, I go out and run. And then day 5 is rest too. Now I still do the calisthenics morning and evening. That's not exercise. That's bare minimum for fitness. But it's also meditative. Then the cardio is followed by a cold shower. So those fit together. I get really hot and sweaty and take a cold shower. Each of them without the other would be a little more difficult, but together they're a little less difficult than both of them together.
And is the cold shower about the health benefit? Because I know it has an effect on fat mass and stuff.
I don't.
Or is it really just?
Yeah, I don't buy any of the. I don't think you can do a double-blind controlled experiment on like how do you control like you're not taking a cold shower. Like I don't believe any of this stuff. Like I just did this 2.5 day fast, and people are like, oh, human growth hormone. I'm like, the human body is incredibly complex, and someone's doing an experiment on one little element. No one knows what they're talking about. But here's what I do know is how I feel. And after I take a cold shower, before I take a cold shower, I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then the rest of life, it's a very valuable skill to develop, to say, when you say I'm going to do something, to do it.
Yeah.
I want to be someone like that. I want people like that in my life. People say, don't you get bored with it being repetitive? Which I don't know if they say that to like monks who meditate, because it's not as repetitive if that's what you're looking at it like that. But at the beginning, I thought it was about strength and endurance, and it probably was. Then it's about how do I arrange my life to make these things possible as I did more and more, because I started with just 10. In my heart, I still feel like my whole exercise routine, all of it in my heart feels like 10 burpees,
Right.
which is roughly 90 seconds. And so it's really 15 minutes morning, 15 minutes evening, plus all the kettlebell stuff that I talked about. But it doesn't feel like that because of the way I've done it. So people from the outside think it's like this big thing, but that's because they're busy watching TV and they think turning the TV off is a big deal.
Yeah.
To me, what they do is unbelievable. The time and money that they put into their habits is so greater than mine.
Now you have a podcast which is about, is it called Leadership in the Environment?
And
Leadership and the Environment, which is an award-winning podcast.
Yeah.
And you've also taken a stand yourself, and you've decided, I think it was 37 months ago, to stop flying.
Yeah.
And I read a blog post on your site that was interesting about that, because immediately I start thinking, oh no, does that mean I can't go to Bali, or I can't, wherever it is, can't come to America very easily? And you said it's not, how do you construct it? You said it's not about giving something up, or it doesn't feel like that. Does it feel like a hardship, not flying?
Well, that's what it's become, not a hardship. On the contrary, it's one. Look, if I lived in a world where planes magically flew without emitting carbon gas, and if we could get oil out of the ground without setting these supply lines that impoverish nations and cause wars and things like that, great. But I don't live in that world, and no one else I know does either. And when I was a kid growing up, I liked not responsibility and I liked not accountability. And as I've grown up, responsibility has only improved my life. I prefer. Welcome to New York City.
Yeah, noise, isn't it?
And I prefer. Look, there are plenty of things that I couldn't do when I was a kid, or didn't want to do when I was a kid, that I have to do now. Paying taxes.
Yeah.
There are plenty of things that I loved to do as a kid that I can't do anymore. But I prefer maturity. And I can't stop. I refuse to ignore what's coming out the back of the jet. And no amount of magical thinking makes that go away. And this is just the piece that got in the New York Times today that I wrote. Not a piece, it was a comment to an article, so not published. But people see pictures of, New Delhi. You've seen the pictures, right? Horrible smog, unlivable, right? The people of New Delhi, they happen to be in some geographical area where the smog sticks there. But in actual total numbers, they produce maybe 1,000th the greenhouse gas emissions that a lot of Americans do.
Yeah.
So they're living in this filth, but they're actually producing like 1,000th that we do. And a lot of it is Americans landing their airplanes there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to live in that world anymore. Like, I'm not going to. I live in a world where the flying pollutes.
Yeah.
And I live in a life where maturity, responsibility, I prefer that. I prefer. I feel like a parent who prefers changing the kids' diapers. I've never gotten poo on me. They get poo, like what they do is so much greater. To not fly compared to taking on the responsibility of raising a child for how long are they helpless? 10 years? And how long are they depending on you? 20 years, something like that?
Yeah.
I guess today it seems like 30 years. I don't know. I'm not a parent. But that is like, what I do is nothing compared to them.
Yeah.
And they seem pretty, I haven't met a parent who's like, darn, wish I hadn't had that kid.
Yeah, true.
But the thing is, people, when you're addicted to heroin, it's pretty tough to imagine life without that high, I guess. I've never done it. But that is the heroin part, not the living without the high. But we all know, when someone says, I can't get off of heroin, you know they can. Do you believe someone who says, oh, it's impossible?
Right, no.
That hit is a real joy for them. And if you say that's not real, of course it's real for them. They feel it, it's real. It may come from a different source, some chemical. But you know that they can kick it. And if they do, however much they say, to them, the idea of like working for a living and exercising and eating healthy probably sounds horrible to them. But you know that in the long run, they'll prefer it. Maybe you think, I don't know, maybe you're a heroin addict. I don't know.
No.
But probably whatever they say, you know that they're just saying what they feel. Like the logic is following the emotion, and the emotion, which is true of all of us, as far as I can tell. And so, the more people talking about flying sounds like people talking about heroin.
Right.
And they'll say it's family and work, and they act as if somehow, Josh, you don't understand. I have family and work. I'm like, what world do you think I'm in? Like, I'm in the same world. It was a challenge. It's not what you give up. If you're thinking about what you're giving up, you're just like, all you're doing is thinking about your heroin fix. If you think about, it's what you replace it with. And there you have to take a leap of faith. Yeah. I didn't have to take a leap of faith because before the airplane thing, I did the no packaging challenge, when I gave myself a challenge to go for a week buying no packaged food. I made it 2.5 weeks. I allowed myself to finish what was in the cupboards. But since then, at the time, I would throw out my garbage once a week. Then I'm not at zero packaging, but it's minimal packaging. And so then it was once every other week, then it was once every month, once every 6 months. So last time I threw out my garbage, it took me 16 months to fill it up. New Yorkers will get this. Yeah. About waste. People just think, I throw it away, I don't have to think about it anymore. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars just for the people to pick up the waste and take it away. Not to mention the cost of per square foot of living here. And a lot of the shared space is covered with garbage. I don't mean just litter, but also in front of the buildings, people throw out the garbage and we have less space. Yeah. And that would be, and not to mention, what made me think about it was the noise. The noise of the garbage trucks is one of the great noises in the city. Yeah. And we can make it all go away just by buying less junk. Yeah. And I didn't realize this before. That's not what influenced me to do less junk. But suddenly you start realizing all these benefits. So like you say, but I want to see my family and I want to go to Bali and so forth. And you're missing, for a New Yorker, the beauty of the city, the beauty of what you can get to by train. Or I took sailing lessons to get off of North America. And sailing just in the harbor is phenomenal. It's it just takes me to another world. And it's so much cheaper than flying. Yeah. And to say nothing of the pollution. The choice not to fly led to a couple things. One of the big ones is Frances Hesselbein. She's my mentor's mentor, who's become my mentor and friend. And she's won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She was CEO of the Girl Scouts. She was also, don't tell her I said this, she was born during World War I. And she lived through the Prohibition, she lived through the Depression, she lived through World War II, she lived through Vietnam, she lived through the hippies and all this stuff. I put to you that she is from as different a culture as almost anyone in the world. And if I go to Thailand, I'll meet people who were born very far away from here, but they Facebook and all that stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'm not flying around the world. Whom can I hang out with? How do I get different cultures? Well, how about Frances? So I invited her to a Christmas party and stuff like that, where they become friends. I wouldn't have had that otherwise. Then I want to get off this, I want to go to other places other than North America, so I took sailing lessons. That alone right there is huge, what it's given me. Yeah. But on top of that, I thought, all right, to get to Europe is going to be a big challenge. And a friend mentioned this woman, Dawn Riley. She's been on my podcast. She's won the America's Cup. And she's got this place called Oak Cliff, which is where she trains Olympic athletes, Olympic level sailing athletes. And a friend mentioned her in passing. I said, can you introduce me? So I met her. So I go out there and I see my first Olympic class sailing. And I get her on my podcast, an America's Cup winner. That's pretty big. And she's connected in ways that are insane. The places that, anyway. So then she puts me in touch with an Olympic gold medalist who I interview on the podcast, my first Olympic gold medalist, who was also a CrossFit Games champion. So CrossFit I've heard of, but I don't know too much about it. So I go online to research because before doing the podcast I wanted to research her. And so it turns out that when you compete in the CrossFit Games, you don't know what the event is going to be until you get there. Maybe it's going to be riding a bike, maybe it's going to be lifting weights, maybe it's going to be an obstacle course. So in 2018, one of the events that they had was to row a marathon. So to get on a rowing machine, one stroke is 10 meters, they had to go 26 miles, 42 kilometers. And of course, when they compete, they don't know until an hour before or 3 hours, I don't know, maybe the day before. And they got all these rowing machines just like that one set up. And Now, they're competitors, so they're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to lose. They're like, no problem. So I'm watching them thinking, no problem. And I'm like, can I do that? A lot of middle steps, but I was like, one day, it's like, I set it for half a marathon, 10 intervals. So I do a tenth of a marathon. I do half a marathon with breaks in between. I was like, that wasn't so bad. So a month later, I was like, I go for the full marathon. Again, with break, like 2-minute intervals. So I did 1/15 of a marathon with 2-minute breaks in between. That to me is like a life achievement.
Yeah.
That is as great for me in my life as a trip to virtually anywhere.
Yeah.
But I did in 4 hours, an hour to spare, and I'd be still under what the average American watches in TV every day. And it's a life experience that was no pollution, and I would rather do that than most trips. Flying is giving me so, I'm sorry, not flying is giving me so much. Now, if someone invents a magical airplane, I'll probably fly it.
Yeah.
And the IPCC gives us a limit per year of what you can, to keep under 2 degrees. And one flight can keep you under that. I'm now way under it on average.
Okay.
Now, my goal is not to just barely pass. Like I want to.
So there are personal goal limits for made by the IPCC. So like if you live like this,
Yeah, I'm way below.
right.
But to me, the reason to stop. Okay, the reason to stop packaged food was because I saw how much garbage I produced, which is something like 100 times more than I do now. I don't know, I can't do the math in my head, but it was like once a week versus once every 16 months. 52 times, roughly 60 times. I don't know, I can't do it in my head.
Yeah.
But that's not why I keep doing it. I keep doing it because I'm saving money, because it's more convenient, because more friends come over, because, like, do you know who the last person was who came over that I made my famous no packaging vegetable soup for? It was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He was over here.
Yeah.
I could meet in a cafe or in a studio, but now I'm not going to say we're buddies. That's the kind of person I like to hang out with. And that happens more, and it's much more intimacy.
I like that. Yeah.
So I keep at it because of that. But, okay, save money, save time, more social, most of all, more delicious.
Yeah.
That's what I want more than anything else from food is I want it to taste delicious, and I want to feel fulfilled.
Yeah. We must talk about your new book, which is called Initiative.
Yeah.
You explain what it's about?
Yeah, I have to contrast it with a few things.
Yeah.
First, because I had to go back and forth with my publisher about having the word entrepreneurship on the title, because they were like, it's going to sell more. And originally, this is Leadership Step by Step based on my course at NYU.
Okay, that was the previous book. Yeah.
And then the next book was going to be Entrepreneurship Step by Step, also a course that I teach there.
Oh, okay.
But a couple things happened. One was that whenever I talked to people about entrepreneurship, most of the time they heard Silicon Valley, 20-year-old engineers, they got an idea and they're going for venture backing to IPO or Shark Tank. And I could not get people off of that. Now, when I started my first company, I was going that way, but we grew too fast and it didn't work out so well. I mean, there were a whole other reasons why it didn't work out. But when I talked to people in business school, a lot of people said they wanted to start a company, but almost none did. I would ask them, why didn't you start a company? And the number one answer I got was, I don't have an idea.
Yes.
And when I talk to people who have companies that are successful, I say, is this idea the one you started with? They're like, no. It's not the idea. What I came up with was that it's the social and emotional skills to identify raw, rudimentary, unsatisfactory potential ideas and to develop them to foster them, to grow them into something that will work. And that's skills.
Yeah.
And so as I taught, there's all this stuff about learning project-based, how to, as an educator, to learn project-based learning and experiential learning, and it's different techniques in lecture and case study. But I was always trying to eat away at this needing less and less and less to start of external stuff and developing more and more and more of a person. So I developed the courses to develop the social and emotional skills of being able to create projects from scratch, which seasoned entrepreneurs develop eventually. But I never saw a class that did that. And there are tremendous resources out there. Lean Launchpad, for example, I think, and all the stuff that derives from it, virtually all the classes in entrepreneurship at Columbia, NYU, NSF, National Institutes for Health. It's all derived from this one place, which is by and for Silicon Valley engineers.
Yeah.
Great. I love that they have these resources. More power to them. I'm not going to try to compete with that. But the type of people that have ideas and teams tend to be people who are researchers, people in STEM.
Yeah.
And I looked it up in the United States. 6% of STEM jobs, 6% of American jobs are STEM jobs. So if that's a rough measure for how many people tend to have ideas and teams, 6%, call it 10%, 5 or 10%, something like that. Great resources for them. What about the other 90%? Actually, some of this, that's the wrong book, but it's, lots of people who were helped by my course would have been and were turned away from taking initiative, starting something, because of this hurdle that is very effective for weeding out engineers who aren't really it, who are just kind of philandering for the ones that are really into it. But for people who could start something great but aren't yet at the level of an idea, all it did was put a hurdle up needlessly. And I'm trying to change that.
So this is a question that comes up a lot with people who follow what I do. And as I said, I wrote a book, Screw Work, Break Free, which is on a similar theme. And it was, my model was to create an MVP in 30 days. But also I stressed in there that you don't need a perfect idea. You get the best ideas in motion. So if you choose an idea you want to pursue, then you'll find other ideas as you're in progress. And then you can iterate and find out where you really want to go. So you could use the book to find out what you want to do with your life, to start a business, pretty much anything. I found it a very hard message to get across, and frankly I got a little bit tired of telling people, because it was like explaining quantum physics to a dog. Because when people are in that mode where they absolutely convinced that they need an idea before they can start a business or before they can go anywhere in entrepreneurship, it makes you just sit and wait until that comes to them in a flash of inspiration. I find it quite difficult to convince people otherwise. So I don't know whether have you found a way of, do people know that they need the book initiative? I suppose, thinking as a marketer, do you think people are getting where you're coming from and that they're going to understand why they need it? They do. I just worry that, from my own experience, it can be quite a hard message to get across.
Well, 2 weeks is too early to say. Before looking at it as a marketer, I look at it as an educator.
Yeah.
And there's people put up sometimes a leap that's too great. A leap may be too great. To say, start with even a bad idea and just go with it, is too great for most people.
Yeah.
And the way that I've found to handle big leaps is to give lots of little baby steps. So to say you can do it no matter what, right? There's a lot of that out there. That's like saying to someone, go to Carnegie Hall, get at the piano and play your heart out. And if you have no skills whatsoever, no one can do anything. Now you could say, all right, take some lessons. Now, even that might be too much if the person doesn't know where to find a teacher and so forth. Ultimately, you have to get down to this finger on that key, this finger on that key, this finger on that key, and like that's the C major scale. And this is a piano. This is where that key is, and that's how the first lesson begins. And that's what I did, is to get to the very basic. I tried to put. The people will look at the first couple exercises and say, "This is too easy."
Like what kind of thing? What are the? Can you give me an example?
Well, I mean, the first one is to write a personal essay. That's really people have written personal essays before, but it's partly to have them pick a direction. Because most people, like, maybe they want to do something in this area, maybe they want to do something, and I want to get them focused in one and get them to realize that if you pick one and the other is the right one, you're actually not going to slow down. You'll do this, you'll develop some skills and realize, oh, I thought this could have been a contender, but that one, you're going to switch faster, and you're going to look back at the old one with gratitude for having gotten you there faster than trying to think it out. And I also have people put a list of role models and people that they think of in the fields that they want to go into, because this is human exercises. Yeah, you might make an MVP along the way, but you're developing relationships with people. Ultimately, people are buying your stuff, or if you're going for profit, people are listening to your podcast. Or if that's one of the implementations of initiative in my life is my podcast. It's not a money making thing. I mean, it gets me speaking gigs, but it's not itself a money making thing. And So I want people to have faces. Like you can't say I want the CEO of company X. You have to say the name of that person. The next exercise is to come up with, you've picked a direction. Oh, by the way, I have to say, I can tell you that if you play a bunch of scales, you'll develop some skill on the piano, but that will not develop skills on the piano. And you know that people play piano scales, so you know that they work. But if you lived in a world where no one played piano scales, and piano is all taught by like music, what do you call it? Music appreciation. Music appreciation is nice, but it doesn't teach you to play. So if I describe these exercises, what I've learned is that if I describe them in detail, it's like trying to describe piano scales to someone who doesn't know them. Like, what does it have to do with me expressing myself through my music? It's experiential. And so the early exercises are just specific ways that you can find problems that other people feel or that you feel in areas that you want to work in, and to get these really not low level but rudimentary problems and solutions, and then use them as seeds to start getting advice from people. Most people get judgment from people. Judgment doesn't help you move forward. Advice does. Judgment makes people look down on you from above. Advice makes people feel involved and make them want you to succeed, because they'll feel if you succeed because of my advice, it's probably because of me.
So if you ask somebody, can you advise me how to do this? Once they've given you that advice, they're kind of invested in a way in you succeeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of the time you ask advice, they'll still say, I think it's great, go for it, which is not advice. I mean, go for it is common advice, but I think it's great is judgment.
Yeah.
And it makes them this. And then they're like, prove it, you prove it to me. And that's not productive. It doesn't, most of all, as much as anything else, it's developing relationships with people in the communities that you want to go into.
Yeah.
Relationships where people see you as a problem solver, and they're invested in your success. And when things don't work out for you, they want you to succeed, so they'll help you. And so all these little exercises, they're building skills, they're building emotional skills, social skills, they're developing a team around you of support that is more valuable than an MVP, more valuable than a business plan. Now, you'll probably develop those things also, but developing relationships also costs nothing. I mean, a phone call here or there, or maybe a video chat.
And you've had some remarkable results from people who've done the course.
Yeah.
NYU, what kind of things have they gone on to do?
Oh man, I mean, if I want to start at the top, there's Jonathan, he was a lawyer making 6 figures, very successful, Ivy League degree, and was bored and went to his mentor and said, I'm bored. And the mentor said, take a class at NYU, any class. He didn't know who I was, didn't know the class. He didn't know if the class was, he didn't know that the class was going to give him exercises to build something. And did the exercises, boom, 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 lots of middle steps. Next thing you know, it's being written up in the Wall Street Journal, in the Washington Post, in Forbes, funded by Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, funded by Eric Schmidt of Google. When I was writing the book, he was doing Y Combinator out in Silicon Valley.
Wow. Yeah.
And now he's back, and it was an app that was described by the American Bar Association, called it one of the top web things for law in 2018. And he had if someone had said to him, if someone had given him lean and said, do this, or said, try to get on a Shark Tank, it would have turned him off. Yeah. Instead, he reached the pinnacle of that world, even though that wasn't his initial goal. But I can tell you he likes what he does. Yeah. And I mean, I got to be very good friends with him. Not because I gave him a good grade, I don't remember what grade I gave him, but because we interact. And actually, you can see, if you go to the webpage for the book, joshuaspodek.com/initiative, you'll see a video of him talking. It was actually early, before all this stuff hit, like just after he finished the course. I mean, there was Grace, who, when she took the class, she told me later she almost dropped the class on the first day because her vision of school was take tests, write papers, not go out in the world and do something. Yeah. And so it was September she took the class. By November, she'd gotten what I call a job offer. She'd written a place with what she'd developed so far, and the place was like, if you can do this, we were thinking about doing something like that. If you can do it, be part of the team. So by Thanksgiving, she had met with them. After Christmas break, and I think it was January, she was interning with them. By springtime, the page was up of her project. Weeks later, it was oversubscribed. That summer, I knew some people in that field, and I put her in touch with someone who was like a C-suite person at a publicly traded company, where she was talking about her project, the project she'd done at this first place. And in the middle of the conversation, I'm just there watching because I was the intermediate, and I think she likes having, for this reason, the guy's asking her questions. Every time I couldn't have coached her better, and I didn't coach her. He would ask a question, she would say, "Oh yeah, we had that problem, and we tried this, or we thought about this, we thought about that, and this is what we did, and here's how it worked out." Never bragging, never showing anything off, just saying, "We thought of that problem, we tried this is what happened." I was like, "This is perfect." And at one point in the middle of it, he's like, "And by the way, how old are you?" She goes, 19. He goes,
"Wow.
Oh, okay," and he just jumps back into it. And she also, she spoke at Harvard on her project, and she didn't have an idea. Yeah. And in fact, if someone had said to her, "You could be an entrepreneur," she would have said, "That's not me." And it's not entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a subset. She did happen to start a project, but actually she was an intern at this place. And now she works at another startup. It's a Richard Branson startup. And I don't think her job interview was difficult.
Yeah.
But she loves it. It's like she was doing something in an area. She really likes music, the business of music. And these are all music-based things that she's doing. And there's nothing special about her. I mean, she's a special person, don't get me wrong. But only in the sense that we're all special. There's nothing that gave her any special advantage. I mean, you could say NYU, that's an elite school, it's got a big name, but I don't know if that really made a difference. I think the email that she sent them, that got the first seed of it going when they invited her to visit, I don't think that it came from an NYU.edu address really made a difference. It was the quality of what she thought it through.
Yeah.
And it was just doing the exercises.
Well, it sounds fantastic. And actually, even though it's an area I know fairly well, I'm interested in reading it as well.
I recommend it as a gift for everyone you know.
Yes, that's very wise advice. If people want to find out more about everything that you do, where's the best place to go? Is it to your website?
Yeah, joshspodek.com. And in the upper right corner, you can click for books, you can click for the podcast, you can click for contact me, and then you'll drown in all the blog posts because that's another Sid shot. I post every day.
Yeah, right. Does that take a lot of time, or is that?
It depends. I mean, there's some posts that I put a lot of myself into, and they'll take several days to write, and I have to write quick ones in the meantime for the other things.
Yeah.
And there's some that, like today, I have a file on my computer of like ideas. When I first started writing the blog, I thought I had like 50 posts in me, tops. Again, skills. It's like you develop the skill of writing and thinking of ideas. And so I wrote one today that I was like, oh, this is a good post. But I also thought, this will be quick to write. So I'm going to keep that on there for some time when I get home and it's late and I just want to go to sleep and I can just get that one and I'll write it quick. So there's lots of little things that make it work out.
Yeah.
But I like thinking of ideas. My blog I don't have that many readers. It's not like, I don't know, Tim Ferriss. But, because I think I don't think I write very personally enough of like stories from the gut. It's mostly observations. But
Seth Godin says, even if no one read his blog, he would be writing every day. So he famously blogs every day because of what it does for him.
Yeah, the discipline, the focus, the skills. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fascinating. We should probably stop there. We could go on for another day or two because there's so many interesting subjects to talk about. But thank you, Josh. I really appreciate that. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ideas Lab podcast. Please do subscribe, and if you've enjoyed this episode, it would be great if you could leave us a review. You can get links and details of everything mentioned in the podcast in the show notes, along with photos and video clips from many of our episodes. Just go to theideaslab.org/podcast.